Hello guys, welcome to Android SQLite Database tutorial for beginners. In this video series, I'm going to show you how you can get started with SQLite using Android. We will look in this video series how we can create a database and perform some database queries like insertion, updation, or deletion, or other basic queries on SQLite database using Android. So let's get started and let's see some important stuff regarding SQLite on Android. So first of all, what is SQLite? As you all know, SQLite is a database which is an open source database, so you can use it for free, and it's a relational database. Okay, and the most important feature about SQLite database is it's a local database, so it doesn't require any server or any ODBC or JDBC queries for query or connection for its functionality. It's just, you can say, it saves its data into a text file, and it's saved locally on your you can say mobile device or your tablet or whatever Android device you are using. And Android comes with the built-in SQLite database implementation, so you don't need to install any extra libraries to use SQLite with Android. And the last point is, to create, update a database in your Android application, you can create a subclass of a class called SQLite Open Helper. This is a class which will help us to create and manage our SQLite database. Now enough of the theory. Let's go to the practical part, and let's start with creating our app from scratch. So just open your Android Studio. We are going to start a new Android application, and we will name our application as SQLite app, for example, and then click next, or select your minimum SDK as you already know how to select it. Click next, and I'm going to select a blank activity. Next, and main activity is okay for me, so I'm going to finish. Now once your basic app is created, what we are going to do is we are going to create a class for handling the SQLite database. So go to your app folder, and in the app folder go to the Java folder, and inside here go to the package in which your main activity is there. So this is a package in which my main activity is there. So just go to the package and right click this package, and we are going to create a new Java class, and we will name it as database helper class. Okay, and click OK. And this is a basic blank class, and in here, as we have discussed, we want to create, or we want to extend this class using our SQLite Open Helper. So just go here and just write extend SQLite Open Helper. Okay, and it will show some error because we haven't imported the classes related to this SQLite Open Helper. So just click Alt Enter and just click this button called import class, and it's going to import this class. Okay, still it's showing error because we need to create or implement some of the method from it. So you will be able to see a small bulb, red bulb here. You just need to click this bulb, and then you just need to click implement methods. And there are two important methods related to this class, which are onCreate and onUpgrade. We are going to select both of them and click OK. And one more thing which is required is to create a default constructor. So once again, click this red bulb here and just choose create constructor matching super. Okay, and we are going to select first of them and just create it. Okay, so we have successfully created our database helper class, which extends from our SQLite Open Helper, which is the main class for handling SQLite. And we have some basic methods here and a constructor. Now for creating a database, first of all, we need a database name. Now let's see how we can, how we are going to create a database and what will be the name of our database and all other stuff. So for this, for example, to start with, we are going to create a SQLite database like this, and the name of the database will be student.db. The SQLite database is not case sensitive, so you can use upper cases and smaller cases together, and it's not case sensitive, so case doesn't matter in SQLite. Okay, so our database name will be as student.db, and it's going to contain 4 columns. First, for ID for the student, second is the name for the student, third is the surname or last name for the student, and fourth column will be the marks scored by the student. And we are going to create database or insert some data like this. So ID can be 1 2 3 4, for example, name, surnames, and marks scored by this student. And in this video, we will just see how we can create this database, which is student.db, and create the table, this table for our database. Okay, so now what we are going to do is let's declare some variables so that we can define the name of our database. So let's declare our variable which we are going to assign the database name. Okay, so let's declare public static final string, and let's declare a variable name called database underscore name, and we will assign the name of our database, for example student.db. And I told you that case doesn't matter. You can write student.db like this or in capital. It doesn't matter. It's going to treat them as same. Okay, and second, what we are going to do is we are going to declare our table name. So this will be our table name, and let's give the name to our table as student data table or student table, which will resonate perfectly with our table. And as we have discussed, this table is going to contain 4 columns, 1 2 3 4. And for simplicity, let's keep all the variables as string. First column name was ID. Okay, so ID for the student, and the table name is column name is ID, right? So, or you can do something like this, call underscore 1. Call 1 is ID, and similarly column 2, column 3, column 4. So like this, column 2, column 3, column 4. First column was ID, second column was name, third column was surname, and fourth column was marks. Okay, so these are the 4 columns. This is our table name, and this is our database name. Now in order to create our database, first what we are going to do is we are going to in the constructor we are going to create our database. So we need to call a function which creates the database, right? So for simplicity, let's reduce our constructor which only takes this context. Okay, and as you can see here, this super class, we can just give the name of our database. So our database name is this variable, pass it here. Third is factory, we are going to pass null here, and the version, for example, version is equal to 1. Now whenever this constructor is called, your database will be created. Okay, now in order to create the table inside your database, we are going to create a table whenever this onCreate method of this class is called. Okay, so you can see SQLite database class is the argument inside onCreate, right? So we can just take this db, which is a variable of SQLite database, dot execute SQLite or exec SQLite or SQ. So take this instance db and call a method called dot exec SQL, and what it does is it executes whatever query you pass inside this method as an argument. So it takes the string variable or a string query. So here you can prepare your create table query, and then whenever it's called, it's going to execute this query and it's going to create this table. Okay, so let's write our query. For example, create the table name, so create table, and the table name in our case is this one. So you can use this concatenation operator to concatenate this, and then inside your brackets your column names comes, right? So first column name is ID, or you can just take these names, column 1, column 2, column 3 and column 4 here. So inside double quotes and plus plus you can write column 1, and then let's write our query first, and let's forget about these variables. So let's understand first how this query is written, and then we can insert these variables here. Okay, so just write create table and your table name, and then in the brackets comes the ID, which is the first column name, and then comes the attributes of this column. So it will be integer, and it's going to be my primary key. Primary key means the unique key which you will be able to identify the tail rows. Okay, and then it's going to auto increment. Auto increment means it's going to increment automatically even if you don't provide any data for it. Okay, the second column name is name itself, and the attribute or the data type for this is text, for example. The third column will be surname, and the data type is text for it also, and the fourth column is the marks column. So marks, and let's create it as integer. So we have created a table using this query. So this query is create table and your table name is student table, and in the brackets we have provided 4 columns to it. ID, which is a primary key and it's going to auto increment, name, which is a text, surname, which is a text, and marks, which is integer data type. Okay, now one more thing which we can do is in the upgrade method, we can once again call this exec SQL. So this is the object we can use, dot exec SQL, and in here we can just drop our table if it exists in case of upgradation. So drop table if exist, and the table name is this one. So you can just copy and paste like this. Okay, and once again we are going to create this table. So you can now directly call on create here, on create, and pass this db instance. Now once this is done, what we are going to do is, this is just for checking, we are going to write a single line of code so that our database is created and the table is created also. So just go to the constructor once again in here and just create an instance of SQLite database, which is the same as this, and we will name it as db is equal to this dot get writable database. Okay, and what it's going to do is it's going to create your database and table, and in next video we are going to remove this line because we are going to write our code to insert the data into the database. So this is just for checking. Now database helper code is done. I think just one more little change which I would like to do is this key spelling is wrong. It should be KEY instead of KAY. And now what we are going to do is we are going to take this database helper class and create an instance of this database helper class in our main activity.java class. So copy this class name, go to your main activity.java file and create an instance. So write the name of your class and the instance name, for example my db. And now in our onCreate method of main activity.java file, you can just create a new instance. So my db new and then new database helper. Okay, and this takes one argument, which is the context. So you can just write this and everything will be fine. Now once everything is done, what it's going to do is it's going to call the constructor of this database helper class. And what we are doing in the constructor, we are creating the database, right, and the table. Okay, so once this constructor is called, this code is called, and it's going to create the database and the table for you. Okay, so let's run our program. Now our app is running, so you can see this activity, which is blank activity, and it's not going to do anything right now. But what it has done is, once this activity is invoked, it's going to call your onCreate method in your main activity, and in turn it's going to call this constructor, and this constructor is going to create your database and your table inside your database. Now to check whether your database is created or not, how you can check and where is the location of this database. So let's see where can we find this database. So go to your Android Studio, and in here go to this tab called Tool, and then go to Android and click Android Device Monitor. Okay, so click Android Device Monitor, and once your Android Device Monitor is open, you will be able to find your project name in here. So my project name or my app name is SQLite app, and I can find my app here. You can see SQLite app. Okay, once you select this, go to the right hand side, and in here choose File Explorer from here. Okay, And in this file explorer, go to the category called data and open it. And once again search for the category called data. So data, go to data, and inside data there will be a folder once again called data. So go inside that folder, open this folder, and now you can find your app name here also. So my app name is SQLite app, I can see here, and I will go open this folder here, and I can see a folder called database, and inside this database I can see my database name, which is student.db. So now I know that my database is created. Now if you are more curious about seeing inside this database, and you want to see if the table is really created or not, or if once we are going to insert some data, you want to see the data if it's there or not, I will show you a simple trick which will help you. You can export this database to your local PC. Okay, so right now it's in your Android device, so you can export this database on your PC, and then you can query this database, or you can see inside this database what's inside this database. Okay, so this is just for checking the content of your database by transferring this database to your local PC and see what's inside it. So just select your database, in my case student.db, and you will be able to see this small button here which says pull a file from a device. So click this, and it's going to open a file explorer, and then you can select your chosen location and save it on your chosen location. For example, I'm going to save it on the desktop, and it's going to save it there. And then what you can do is you can if you have SQLite installed on your Windows, you can just open your terminal, and you can see inside this database. One more helpful tool I'm going to show you in order to see inside this database, and this tool is called SQLite Manager, which is a Firefox plugin. So if you have a Firefox browser, it's going to help you a lot. What you can do is you can open your Firefox browser and go to the settings here and go to add-ons and search for an add-on called SQLite, and it's going to search for this SQLite Manager 0.8.3. You just need to install it. Just install it and then restart your browser. And once your browser is restarted, you can go to settings once again and then go to customize here, and in here you will be able to see this tool SQLite Manager. You can drag and drop this in to your tools here, and then exit customize, and now you will be able to open this from here. So just open SQLite Manager, click OK, and now you can browse your database. So my database is on the desktop, and make sure you select all files from here. Okay, so you will be able to see this .db file. Okay, so select all files from here and select your database and open, and now you can see this database, and there is a table called student table which we have created, and this table is containing 4 columns: ID, name, surname, and marks scored by the student. Okay, and you can browse the type integer, text integer, which we have provided, and our ID is a primary key, you can see. So the database content you can see using this SQLite Manager. Okay, so this is a simple little trick which you can use. In the last video we have seen how we can create a database which is a SQLite database using Android. Now in this video we are going to see how we can insert some data into our table inside that SQLite database. So let's get started. First of all, go to your activity main.xml file and go to the design tab there. In the last video we have created this blank activity, right? So go to that activity, and then we are going to drag and drop some text views here and edit texts here so that we can use them to insert some data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag 3 large texts here and 3 plain texts. And now we are going to change these large texts label as the column names of our table. So first is name, second is surname, and third is marks. If you want, you can change the ID names of these text views and edit text also. So for example, this is for text view for name. Now you may be thinking that we have 4 columns in our table. First is ID, second is name, third is surname, and fourth is mark. But we have taken only 3 3 variables here, or 3 text views. Where is ID text field and edit text? If you remember, we have defined ID as auto increment, so it will increment automatically when you insert some data inside your table. So we don't need to add this ID specifically. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to take a button and we are going to change the text to add data, and we are going to change the ID to button add, for example. Okay, and that's it for the design part. Now what we are going to do is, if you remember in the last video, we have created a class for handling our database, and the class name was database helper class. So go to that class. This was the code which we have written in the last video, and now just go below, and now we are going to create a new method to insert data. So let's create this method. This will be the public method and it's going to return boolean, and we will name our method as insert data, for example. And we are going to add 3 arguments to this method. First is for name, second is for surname, and third is for marks, right? So let's add. Now once this is done, what we are going to do is, first of all, we are going to create the instance of SQLite database. But if you remember last time, we have added in the constructor of this database helper this extra line so that we can see the database created. Okay, so now it's a time to remove this line, so just cut it from here and the constructor will be like this. Okay, so just remove that extra line and you can paste the same line here, because we are going to use this SQLite database instance in our insert data method. Okay, so just paste it here. Now the second thing which we need here is the instance of a class called content value. So just write content value and the variable name is equal to new content value. Just press Alt Enter to import the required classes. And now we are going to take this content value instance and we are going to put some data into the columns. So just write content value dot put, and it takes 2 arguments. First is the column name in which you want to insert data, and second is the value itself. So our column name, first column name for name was column 2. You can see here. So column 2, comma, the value which we are going to pass. So this is the value which we are going to pass here. Okay. In a same way, we will do the same for column 3 or the surname column and the marks column, right? And this will correspond to the value surname and marks value. Okay. Now once this is done, we can just insert our data using this db instance, db dot insert, and this takes 3 arguments. First is the table name. So our table name is this variable, so copy this and pass it here. Second is null, and third is our content values, okay, which we have created. Okay, now how can we know that the values are really inserted into the table or not? Okay, so what we can do is this insert method, you can control and just click this method, and you can see here, in case of error, this method returns -1, and if it's successful, this method return the inserted row value. Okay, so if the data is not inserted, this method is going to return -1 to us. So what we can do, we can define long and then result is equal to the result, because this insert returns the result as -1 or the inserted value. And then we can return this if we can check if this value is -1. So if result is equal to -1 is equal to -1, then we are going to return false, else we are going to return true. Now once this method is created, we can just go to our main activity.java file here, and in here we can define 3 edit text variables, because we have created in our design edit text. So we are going to create 3 variables for edit text and 1 variable for our button. Okay. Once these 3 variables are created, what we are going to do is inside our onCreate method, we are going to cast all these 4 variables, 3 edit text and 1 button. Now once our casting is done, we can use this button add data variable to call some action, right? So what we are going to do, we are going to create a method public void add data, and inside this method we can take this button add variable and call set on click method. So set on click method, and in here new on click listener. Now inside this on click method, what we can do is we can call our insert data method here using the instance of this data helper class. So in the last video we have created this instance my data, so just take this dot insert data. Now as an argument for this insert data, we need 3 arguments, right? So we can see it needs 3 arguments. First is name value, second is surname value, and third is mark value, right? So we will go to the main activity, and for this insert data, what we can do is we can take the value from edit text. So just take the first edit text, which is edit name dot get text dot to string. Okay, The second value will be edit surname dot get text dot toString, and the third argument will be edit mark dot get text dot toString. And don't forget to close this. And once it is successful, what we can do is we can check if it's successful or not by declaring a boolean variable. So bool is inserted is equal to, right, because this insert data method return boolean value. We have made this method to return boolean value. If the data is inserted, it's going to return true, otherwise false. So if this is true, that means data is inserted, right? So we can just display some message. Otherwise, if it returns false, then we can print the negative message. Now our code for inserting data is done. One thing which is remaining is just call this method inside the onCreate method of your main activity, so that this method will be called whenever we click this add data button. Okay, and now we are going to run our program. So now our app is running and you can see 3 added texts. So we are going to add some name, surname and mark. And once our data is inserted, we can click this add data button, and this is going to show the message if it's inserted or not. So click this and it says data inserted, right? Now in the last video I've shown you the trick how you can check whether it's really inserted or not using this Android device monitor. I'm not going to show you how you can do it once again, but just follow the trick as we have done in the last video, and you will be able to see the data. So I'm going to go to my database and I'm going to save this database to my local PC. And now I can see this database using the SQLite manager as I have shown you in the last video. And now you can see this data is inserted in our database, right? So in this way you can insert data into your database using Android. I hope you have enjoyed this video. In the next video we are going to see how we can display this data, because it's not convenient to go every time to the database and see it in the SQLite manager. So we are going to create some code to display the data using some button. In the last video we have seen how to insert data into SQLite database using Android. In this video we will see how we can get all data from SQLite database table and show it on your Android. So let's get started. First of all, what we are going to do is we are going to take a button, and this button we are going to use to view all data. So I'm going to change the text as view all, and the button ID I'm also going to change as button. Now once our button is created, what we are going to do is we are going to create a method to get all the table data. So we are going to go to our database helper class, which we have developed in the last videos, and inside this database helper class what we are going to do is we are going to create a new method, and this method we are going to call it as get all data, which will be a public method, and it's going to return a class or instance of a class called cursor. And this cursor class we will see what this is, but let's create our method first. So get all data, and it's not going to take any argument for now. And inside we will write a query to get all the data. Now this cursor will show some errors, so you just need to press Alt Enter to import the class, which is cursor class. And now what we are going to do is we are going to create the instance of database class just as we have done in the last video. You can just copy this first line from the function insert data from the last video and paste it in this new function. And then we will create an instance of a cursor class. So this is our cursor class, and we will name it as for example res for result. And then we will take an instance of our database, and then we will call a raw query on this database. So raw query. And if you know how to query SQLite database, you may know how to query all the data from the table. So this is a simple query I'm going to write, which is select all, asterisk stands for all, right, from your table. So our table name is table name itself, which we have defined in the last video. So plus table name, and then it takes an argument which we are going to pass it as null for now. And now we just need to return the instance of this cursor, which is res, right? So return res. Now you may be wondering what this cursor class does. You can press Control and click on this cursor, and you will reach to this cursor class. And this cursor class is an interface which provides the random read-write access to your result. Okay, so you can see here we are querying the database, and the result we are storing it in this cursor instance, and using this we have the access to our data, right? So our get all data is created. Now we are going to go to our main activity .java class, and in here first of all we will create the variable for view all button, right? If you remember, we have created this view all button, so we will create an instance for this here. So and now we will cast this button. Now once we have casted our button, we can use this button object to call set on click listener, right? Let's create a method. So it will be a public method, and we will say this will return nothing, and we will name it as view all method. It takes no arguments, and in here we can call the object of our view all button, and then we can call set on click listener, set on click listener, and inside this we will create a new on click listener. And when this button is clicked, we want to perform some action, right? So what we are going to do here is we are going to get all the data using this function which we have just created, which is get all data, right? So we will use the instance of our database helper class, which is mydb, which we have created, dot get all data, right? And we are going to save it in the cursor because it returns an object of cursor, right? Now this has some properties. This object have some properties. If we call this object, and we can get the count of the lines, so get count, and this is the result count we are getting. If this is equal to 0, then it means that there is no data available for us, right, from this get all data. by querying to the database. And then we have to show some message. So right now I'm just writing a comment, and we are going to create a method for showing message in some moment, and then we are going to return. If there is no result, then we are going to show error and return. Otherwise, if there is some result, then we are going to create some string buffer, and then we are going to display this data. So we are going to create an instance of string buffer, and we will name it as buffer is equal to new string buffer. And then we are going to get all the data one by one using this res object. And how we can do it? We can use a while loop, and as a condition of this while loop, we can take this res object and we can call a method move to next. So dot move to next, and it moves your cursor to the next result. Okay, and then we are going to get this result, and we will store it in the buffer, right? So buffer dot append, and in this buffer we can append the result. Okay, and how we can append this? We can write the name of our column. So our first column name was id, and then this colon, and then plus we will use this res object, and then we are going to get the string. So get string, and then we will pass an index of the column, and index of the column starts from 0. And if you remember, our table was containing 4 columns. One was id, second was name, third was surname, and fourth was mark. So index of id will be 0, index of name will be 1, index of surname will be 2, and index of marks will be 3. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. So index of id is 0, that's why we are giving here 0, and then we can just give or change the line to next, and we will do the same for the other columns also. So and the index of name was 1, index of surname was 2, and index of marks is 3. And let's give double line break to the last column, so that when next data is printed, it's printed after a line break. And then we want to show all the data, so let's write a comment. So let's create a new method which will be also a public method, and it will return nothing. So void, and the method name will be show message. It's going to take 2 arguments. First is the title, and second is the message itself. Okay, so string message, and in here we are going to create an instance of alert dialog builder. So just write alert dialog dot builder, and we will name it as builder is equal to new alert dialog dot builder, and it takes the argument which is the context, so this itself. And using this builder we can create a alert dialog. Okay, so we can set our title and set message using this builder to alert dialog. So let's create, first of all, let's use this builder to set cancelable. So set as cancelable, so that we can cancel it after its use, and then we will set the title. So builder dot set title, and title will be the title which we get from this argument, and then we will set the message. So builder dot set message, and message will be this message which we will get in the argument. Okay, and then we can just call show method on this builder. This will show our dialog. Okay, dialog or alert dialog. So let's just copy this show message function here, and first of all, if no data is found, what we are going to do is we are going to show some message. So the title of this message box will be error, and we will display nothing found, or you can say no data found. Okay, and when the data is found in here, we can just show some message that data, the dialog title, and the second argument will be the buffer, and we need to convert this buffer into the string, so just call toString on it. Okay, and now our code is done. One more thing which remains is we need to call this view all method inside our onCreate method. So just copy this view all method and paste it inside your onCreate method of your main activity. Okay, now let's run our program. So our app is running now, and when we click this view all button, we will be able to see the data. So right now we only have one student data, so it's showing ID 1 and name, surname and age, and we can add some more data for the student. And let's add this second student data here, and I'm going to click this add data button, and data is inserted, and now view all the data, and now we have two student data, ID 1 and ID 2. Okay, so in this way you can insert some more data, and then using this view all button you will be able to see all the data here. And in this video, we will see how we can update data in SQLite Database using our Android app. Till now, we have seen how to insert data into the SQLite database and how to view it. And let's add one more button here. And this button we are going to use to update the data. So I'm going to change the name as update. And one more thing we want to do is, if you remember, our database table contains 4 columns. First one was ID, second one was name, surname, and the marks scored by the student, right? And to update the data, we need a unique reference of the row so that we can, tell SQLite that we want to delete the data from this row, particular row, right? Because names can be same. So if you want to change the name of one person which shares the name with the other person, then the data can be changed for both the names if you don't know what is the unique row or unique column in this. Okay, so ID we have defined as a unique column for this database table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly add this ID text view and edit text so that we can enter the ID also. So now I have added this ID edit text and text view here, right? Now we are good to go. So next thing we will need to do is we need to create a function in our database helper.java class, which we have created in the last videos. So let's go to database helper.java file, and in here till now we have created insert data and get all data functions, right? We will create one more function here, and we will call it as update data. Okay, so it will be public and it will return boolean. So we need to know if the data is really updated or not, so we are going to return boolean, and we say this function name is update data. Okay, arguments it's going to take four arguments. First argument we are going to pass here will be string ID. Second is the string name. So basically I want to pass all the four column data to it, because our table contains four columns: ID, name, surname, and marks, right? So I'm going to pass all the four column data. I'm going to take it from edit text and pass it in this function. Right now in here, what we are going to do is, as we have done in the insert data function, first of all we will create a SQLite database instance. So I'm going to copy this from here to here, and second we are going to create an instance of content value. Okay, so let's create that, and then as we have done in this insert data function, that we were putting whatever data is passed from the argument to this content value using put, right? So let's do it. And one more column we need to add here, and this will be for column 1, right? This will be column 1 and it's ID in our case, right? Because this contains extra ID here. Now, the only difference in this function and the insert data function is the method we are going to use now. So just take your database instance now and then call update here. And this update will update your data, whatever argument you pass here. First argument it takes is the name of your table. Okay. So give the name of your table. This is our table name. If you remember, we have declared table name here, right? So first argument is the table name, right? Second is the content value. So it takes second argument as content value. So we take this instance of content value and pass it here. Third argument is the condition which we want to pass here. So what we want to do, we want to update data on the basis of, for example, ID, because ID is our unique primary key here, and on the basis of primary key we can differentiate data. So in here we will write ID is equal to question. So we will ask whatever ID is passed using this ID parameter, we are going to query this. And fourth is the value on the basis of which we want to update our data. So this is the column name on the basis of which we want to update the data, and our column name is ID. So you can just write here column name ID is equal to question mark, and then in here fourth argument, let's go inside this update. So just hover over control and click and see it takes the fourth argument as the string array, right? So we will go back and pass string array here, right? So we can just write here in the curly braces, we just pass our ID and we want to pass the new instance of it. So new string ID. Okay. And if everything goes well, we want to return true to know that if the data is really updated or not. Now this is done. So what we are going to do is we are going to move to our main activity.java file, and in here we will declare one more button variable, which will be our button for updating. So button update. Okay, and then we are going to take this button instance and we will cast it as a button using the ID. So the ID of this button is button itself right now. So let's change the ID to button underscore update or something like this. Button underscore update. So we know that this button is for update, right? Then we will go to main activity.java. We already declared our button for updating. So take this button, go to your onCreate method where you have typecasted all other tools or widgets, is equal to button. So we have done casting this button, and now we are going to create a function, and this function will be public. I'm going to declare this function here itself, void update data, for example. It's not going to take any argument, and inside this function what we are going to do is we are going to take this button and call set on click listener on it. So dot set on click listener, and inside this new on click listener, and inside this we just need to call our update function from our database helper. So this was update function. The name was a little bit wrong, so let's make it update function, right? And now what we are going to do is in our main activity.java file, inside this onClick method, we will declare a boolean to check if the data is updated, and we will name it as is updated is equal to, and now we are going to take our my database instance which we have created in our previous videos from our database helper class, right? So mydb dot update data, and now this update data function takes 4 arguments, as we know: ID, name, surname, and age, right? And in here we need to declare one more added text variable for ID, because we have created this new added text here, which is added text ID. So let's create one more variable for added text in our main activity.java file. So let's add, for example, added text for ID. Okay, and then we take this added text and add to our onCreate method, and we will cast it same as we have done for other added text in the previous videos, but the ID here will be for added text ID, right? So added text ID, right? And now we can take this added text ID and pass it in our update data method here, dot get text, right? So it will take the text from the added text and it will pass to this function. Same we will do for all our other added text, which was for name, surname, and marks. And the reason why it's showing error, because we need to convert this get text to strings, right? So dot to string. Okay, add this to other variables also. So basically what we have done, we have called our update data function and we have passed whatever we are getting from added text, right? Now if this function returns true, which is update data, then so we will check if is update is equal to true, then what we are going to do, we are going to show some message, right? So we can take these messages from our last video. By the way, in the last video I forgot to give this double equal to. So when we are checking equality, we need double equal to. Or single equal to we need in case of assigning the values, right? So I'm going to copy these messages from here and I'm going to paste it here. Okay, so now we will say data is updated or data is not updated in case if it returns false. Data not updated. Okay, now just copy this function and paste it inside our onCreate method so that it can be called when this onCreate method is called. And now we are ready to run our program. So let's run it. So now our program is running and we can see when we click this view all button which we have created in the last video that we have two rows of data. One is ID 1 and name is Mark and surname is Benson, and second is Tom, right? For example, I want to update the first letter of the name Mark. I want capital M here instead of small m, and same I want to do for this Benson here, right? So what we are going to do, we are going to just write the name here. So I have corrected the spelling in the name. Instead of small m, I have added capital M, and instead of small b, I have added capital B. And the other things remain same, marks remain same. And if you remember, the ID of this name Mark is 1. This is important here because on the basis of ID, we are editing the data, right? And now we can click this update button. Just click this update. And it says data updated. Okay, so let's check the data once again by view all, and now you can see the name Mark with the capital M and the surname Benson with capital B. So our data is updated successfully, right? So in this way you can update the data in the SQLite database using your Android app. And in this video, we will see how to delete data in SQLite database using our Android app. So let's get started. Till now, we have seen how to insert data, how to update data, and how to view data in SQLite database. So let's add a new button and we will call this button as delete data. So let's change the text of this button as delete, and the button ID will change it to button delete. Okay, now once we have this button, what we are going to do is we are going to go to our database helper class which we have made in our previous videos, and in this class we will create a new function and we will call it as delete data function or method as we say in Java. So let's call it a public function which will return integer, and we will call it as delete data function, for example, and it will take one argument, and this argument will be the ID of our table. Okay, so we know that we have 4 columns as I always mentions in our database table. One is ID, name, surname and age. This table we have been working on, and we want to delete the data on the basis of ID because ID is our primary key here. Primary key means the unique identifier on the basis of which we can recognize the data which we want to affect. In this case, we want to delete this data, right? So that's why this function delete data will take this ID as an argument. Now the first thing which we will do is we are going to create the SQLite database object using this get writable database, which we have done in the last videos also, right? So just copy this and paste it here. Okay, and the next thing is we will take this database instance to delete the data. So take db here, and we are going to call delete on this database instance, and this delete takes 3 arguments. One is the name of your table, so let's press control and go inside this delete function first of all, and let's see what it takes. So this delete function takes the name of your table, and then second argument is the where clause, and the third argument is the value which you want to pass as a string array. And in return, it returns the number of affected rows if the data is deleted, or number of rows which are deleted. Otherwise, if no data is deleted, it returns 0. Okay, so we are going to use this return integer to check how many rows are affected, or if any rows are affected or not, and on the basis of this we can print the result, right? So we will come back to our database helper class, and first argument we will pass it as the table name. Our table name is student table, so we will take the table name variable and pass it as a first argument. Second argument is the clause, and clause is, in this case, is we want to delete the data on the basis of ID, right? And the ID column name in our case is ID here, right? So you can take this ID, and we want to ask for the ID. So we will ask what is the ID, like this. ID is equal to question, and then this question mark will be replaced by the value we are going to pass here as a third argument. So this will be the new string array, and here we will pass the ID, the value of ID, which we take from here, and this is going to delete your data. Now we are seeing here I'm returning integer, so you can just write return, because this delete method in the SQLite database class returns the integer, right? So this is the method we want to create in database helper class. Now what we are going to do is we are going to go to our main activity.java class, where we will write our code for the button press, right? So first thing we are going to do is we are going to declare one more button variable, and we will name it as button delete, for example. And now we are going to cast this button in our onCreate method. So in here I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to just cast this button delete and change the ID. So ID dot button delete. Okay, now next thing is, as we always do, is we will create a function which will be a public function, and it's going to return nothing, and we will name it as delete data function, and it's going to take no argument. And in here what we are going to do is we are going to take our button delete variable dot set on click listener, and we will create a new on click listener. And in here what we want to do is we just want to call our delete data function, right? So here what we are going to do is we are going to declare an integer variable, and we will call it as deleted rows, right, is equal to, and then we are going to take the object of our my database class, or database helper class, which is mydb in my case, dot we will call this delete data function which we have created just now, right? And this takes one argument, which is ID, So let's see what is the ID of this edit text ID. So this is edit text ID itself, right? So we will just write edit text ID. Okay, now we are going to take the text from it. So we will call get text function here, and then we are going to convert this into string, right? So whatever this function returns, we will check how many number of rows are affected. If this deleted rows not equal to 0, that means some rows are deleted, or better we can say is greater than 0. Okay, if this is greater than 0, then what we are going to do, I will copy this to save some time, and we are going to create a toast which will show the message like this: data deleted. And if this deleted row is equal to 0, so if number of rows deleted is equal to 0 or less than 0, then we say data not deleted. Okay, so this is our function which we want to create in our main activity.java file. And don't forget to copy this and paste it in your onCreate method. So call this function in your onCreate method. And now we are going to run this program. So let's run it. So now our app is running. First of all, let's see what data we have. So we will click view all. And right now we have two rows, right? One is ID1 and one is ID2. So let's delete this ID2 data, for example, right? So what we need to do is we will just go to this ID edit text, and we will just write 2 here. Okay, and now what we are going to do is we will just click delete, and it says data deleted, and we will see once again all the data. So we will click view all, and now only one row is remaining here. So that means it has deleted our row number 2 or ID2 data. Okay, in the same way, if you write here 1 and click delete, it will delete the row 1 or row with ID 1. So in this way you can delete the data in SQLite database using your Android app. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment and subscribe, and bye for now.